So today on Nature's Always Right, we are going to learn all about raising sheep. We're going to get into everything from how to find them, transporting them, the minerals they might need to eat for optimal health, the netting, how to move them, and why I think raising sheep is such an amazing thing to do if you have a little bit of land. So the reason I got sheep is because I can raise them for free on my land, running them through the woods, running them on pasture, and they're going to help me manage my land a whole lot better and provide fertility. So in my opinion, now that I've dealt with sheep, I've seen, goats, cows, I've seen it all. I think that personally, sheep, chickens, and you could even throw in goats into that mix a little bit too. They're the best homesteading animals because they could be raised completely for free. Layer chickens, you don't need to buy grain. The main reason we feed grain is because they're in confinement and they can't free range, or we're trying to boost egg production. Of course, you would just get less volume of eggs. So a lot of things I'm thinking about as I'm building my homestead, as I look at what our government and world governments are doing, and I look at kind of the future landscape, the supply chains breaking down, things like that, I'm thinking of animals that I can raise that I don't need outside inputs for. Pigs are amazing and I'm going to continue to raise them, but if feed prices got to a point where it didn't make economic sense to raise them, then I have chickens and sheep for meat and eggs. The reason I chose sheep over goats for meat is because, number one, they're easier to raise. They stay in netting much easier than goats will. They will not destroy the ground as badly as goats. Goats will go and scorched earth it, rip the roots out of the ground. Goats also, if I was to sell the meat, it is not as popular. Especially with Americans. Different communities like Latino or Muslim communities, they will definitely eat it and love it. And goat is amazing, it's delicious. Jamaicans eat it too. So if you live near any of those communities, that might be a great place that you could be able to sell that to. For me though, sheep, I love lamb, and I think the most amount of people, including those other communities I mentioned, they also eat sheep. So, more people eat sheep than goats. But if you want to do dairy goats, that totally makes sense. That's a whole other thing, but I personally am not getting into dairy, at least for now. So how did I find my sheep and get them to my property? Well, I looked on LSN, Local Sales Network. It's way better than Craigslist and tends to go more towards agriculture. So definitely check out that website. Found some great ones. I went for the St. Croix breed because that has a very high parasite resistance, which is a very tricky thing to deal with here in Tennessee. This is why moving your animals more often to get them off of their manure is very important. This breed is also great tasting, easy to manage, they're good mothers, there's a lot of awesome things about it. Greg Judy also raises these, and Greg Judy, check out his YouTube channel, he's amazing. I've learned a ton just by watching his videos, so I highly recommend anybody who's interested in pasture-raised animals to go subscribe to Greg Judy and watch all of his stuff. So behind me is my ram, and I just picked up another ram, which we'll talk about in a future video. Today we're just getting into like the basics for you guys because I just want to introduce you to this whole concept. So a lot of the things that you're going to see in this video, I did about a month ago. So there are definitely some updates I need to share with you, but I'll have to do that in a future video. So I got 6 ewes and 1 ram. I bought these sheep right after they were weaned, so they're still young. The ewes and the ram are both sexually mature, but in order for the ewes to have the best, most healthy life, I read it's better to wait until a year to 18 months to breed them for the first time. And I plan on putting them back together at around August 1st, because talking to other local sheep farmers, they said that was the best time so they can build up some parasite resistance leading up to the summer when those come out. And has less pressure on the mother's milk. That's why you see behind me, the rams are there and the ewes are over there by themselves. So to pick them up, just rented an animal trailer, attached it to my truck, drove and picked them up, threw them in the trailer, brought them home. Then I got all the nets all set up and then we released them into the nets. So the nets that I recommend using, if you're gonna go with Premier 1, I like the 35-inch or the 42-inch sheep netting. And personally, I like the 42-inch even better because the poles are thicker and stronger. I like that little bit of extra height for more predator protection and less likely for the sheep to try to jump out of there. The 35 inches. The poles are a little bit skinnier. It's a lot lighter and easier to move. So I'm also using 164-foot nets. So the rams behind me are in 164, and for my 6 ewes, I'm doing 2 164-foot nets. And before I got these sheep, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to raise my friend's sheep for a few weeks while they were still closing on their property. So I got a little bit more experience with a few other breeds. They were all super mixed. The ram had horns, was really aggressive, so you had to like back him off. You can go see my Instagram posts about him if you want to see a little bit more. Those are now at my friend's house, and I just have my own sheep. So those are just like the basic things that I think would be beneficial for you to know if you're interested in raising sheep. Now let's get into the fences, the fence moves, how I'm doing all that. And then we'll get into minerals, extra feed options, and a lot more other stuff. So I hope that you really enjoy learning about sheep in this video. Okay, so it's been about 4 or 5 days since I put the sheep in this location. They have obliterated everything. I did come in one day just with a shovel in my feet and just knocked over all the different things that were sticking up really high so that they could get the leaves. They're not able to like push over the branches to get to things. They don't figure that out. Now I'm gonna move them into the next section behind here. You know, I thought about just moving them on, but there's just so much food there. I don't wanna lose it. So I'm going to use 2 different tools, my steel straight shaft trimmer with the circular chainsaw attachment that I love to get all the big stuff. Little saplings coming up, you know, up to 3 inches in diameter can cut through that. And then I've got my string trimmer to finish everything off and get a clean line for the fence. The other thing I'm gonna do, the fence right here where they join together, what I'm gonna do is actually use this fence because it's already in the position I want, and I just wanna wrap it around this very thick area behind here. I'm gonna open up the gate to measure out where it's gonna stop, and then mark that spot so I'll put it back so the sheep don't get out, and then start wrapping that fence around to meet the other side. But once I get these sheep trained to an alfalfa bucket, like my friend's sheep that I was watching, then I will let them just walk around out here and eat whatever they want. And then when it's time to put them back into the netting, I'll get the alfalfa bucket out and then walk them back in. I was able to do that with the other sheep. So I'm gonna keep experimenting with other ideas like that. But you know, it's very easy to also contain them if you want to, but I'm trying to get my sheep trained so that if they ever did get out, or if I want to do things with them outside of the net, I can, you know, control them through that bucket. And you can do that with pigs as well. Train them to a bucket and then they'll follow you anywhere. And that way, if they do get out, you kind of have some sort of way to entice them to follow you. I'm gonna open up to make that measurement so I can figure out where to start my gate, close the gate, wrap it all around. So I really like laying out my net first and coming back and getting it tight and pounding it in. Now, whenever you have an elevation change, a lot of times just using a stepping post is the best way to deal with it, to get the line up and off and not grounding out. So what I gotta do now is open this gate, get the sheep to follow me. I've got alfalfa and water in those buckets there. And then we'll keep using Millie to hold them off to keep them in. I'm still, you know, of course, trying to train my dog to learn, and myself, to learn how to deal with these sheep together. So here we go. Millie, Millie, come. Millie. Millie, no, no, Millie. Come here. Okay, so that was a complete disaster. So Millie didn't stay, she went crazy. Sheep exploded, went nuts. We didn't get a hold of them. Eventually went out to the street, went way down our street, and ended up, me and my wife, I went down, they kind of corralled them into a huge yard area. I got them to turn around. My wife drove past us, turned around, and then we pushed them into the street and then drove them back towards our house, and luckily got them back inside. We closed our gates, and then I set up the fences so that there was only one like funnel that they could go to. And then we just slowly had patience and just slowly moved forward until they were able to see, they know that they get alfalfa in that big feeding bucket. So they saw that, started eating it, that was their distraction, and then we could move in and close the gates. So yeah, sheep are definitely the hardest animal that I've raised so far, absolutely. Just because they're just harder to manage and they can escape and they can go really far. So this all could have been avoided if I wasn't trying to do that fancy fence move when I was trying to save time, and it ended up costing me a couple hours trying to get these sheep back to where I wanted. So, you know, maybe that tells me in the future, or until I get Millie more trained and the sheep more trained to what's going on here, more trained to the feed bucket, I just need to have very clean moves where the gates for the new fence and the old fence are in the same position, and then I won't have this problem. So moving forward, that's what I'll do. Now I'm gonna go check around the whole fence, get it hot, and we're done. So besides giving them really good feed sources, either on pasture or in some of this wooded area, the other things that I give my sheep are fresh water every single day. I dump it out and refill it. You know, sheep are a lot more susceptible to parasites and disease and things going wrong with them. They're a lot weaker animals, more like a chicken would be compared to a pig, where I can just fill up their water for like 2 weeks and not touch it, and they're fine, because they're just much more resilient animals. I'm doing everything that I can to give them the optimal health that I can to help them resist parasite problems. And that's one of the reasons I got the St. Croix in the first place, because of the high parasite resistance that they have, being that in the south we don't get a deep freeze, so a lot of these parasites that are in the ground and the soil here, they don't die off, they can live through winter. So it's just high parasite loads almost all the time. It's hot and humid, we get rain year round, so it's just the perfect climate for parasites. So I'm just trying to do as many things as I can to keep my animals healthy, of course. And this is my breeding stock, so these aren't animals that I'm killing and eating unless there's some sort of situation. So I want to keep these animals very healthy and very alive. You know, I paid about $160 per animal, so I've got over $1,000 invested in these, so I want to make sure, of course, that they're healthy and alive, thriving, living the best life that they can. And I owe those animals that as their steward. So beyond fresh water, so these two things that you're seeing here, these are just little sleds that were built out of a 55-gallon rain barrel and some wood. I bought these from a guy who moved, didn't need his sheep stuff anymore locally, so I picked it up from him, which was really great. Thankful to have this. And this is for feed, and it's got 4 different compartments. You can just, you know, change the size of the compartments if you want. For minerals, I'm giving them Icelandic kelp, and you guys know I like to use that in my garden as well. It's just a multivitamin for the animal. And then this is Redmond's salt. This is like set up as a free feed situation, so when the animals want to eat some of this, they eat it. Now the ultimate version of this is doing like a full-on mineral system. You can, if you watch Greg Judy's videos, he has like a huge system. It's like 20 minerals, I think, individualized minerals, so that the animal can select which mineral they need at what time. And it's pretty amazing. You can remineralize your soil out in your pastures with your animals utilizing this method, because what the soil is lacking, they're eating the grass, right? And the grass does not have, let's just say, enough manganese or something, right? So the sheep is not getting enough of that in their diet. They will go to the mineral feeding system, find the manganese, eat that, will balance it in their body, and then a lot of that excess mineral is pooped out or peed out. Okay, so then that's adding it to the soil. Over time, over years, now the manganese is going to rise in your soil. So this is another really amazing way of using animals, partnering with nature to remineralize fields. So, in market gardening, people will do that with soil tests and then bring in the minerals, add that. The other way to do it is actually soil has all the nutrients and minerals already needed. The problem is that the life and biology is in the soil to unlock those minerals to make them available to the plant's roots. So if you can provide enough biology to that soil, that's another way to get those minerals available to the grass or the trees or whatever's growing on that land. So I described all that just to show you guys the amazing regenerative tools that we have at our disposal now. So many techniques and ways to revitalize land. There's not just one way to do it. There's not just the best way to do it. What is the context and the animals or the plants that you're raising, and what is the best way to achieve that balancing of microbes and minerals and all that stuff. The last thing I have here is just some organic alfalfa pellets, and I'm using this to train the animals so that they like me more, and that if they get out, I can train them to a bucket so that they know if they come to me, they're gonna get their candy, essentially. And one thing that the guy I bought the ram from recommended to me to keep the ram a little bit more docile, essentially, around you, is to not be nice to it, don't pet it or treat it like a pet. And in doing that, he will not become comfortable with you, and therefore he won't lose his fear of you. You want him to maintain fear of you so that he doesn't become aggressive and start trying to headbutt you, which I dealt with my friend's ram, which was pretty annoying. Oh, and the final thing that I put in my water sometimes is Korean natural farming stuff. So labs, lactic acid bacteria, which is like a probiotic for them. And then the maintenance solution, which is Oriental herbal nutrient, which is an extraction of like cinnamon, garlic, ginger, some other things, brown rice vinegar, and fermented plant juice. So these are just all like more nutrients, more immune boosting things for the animals. So this is something that you can feed. You can feed all of those things to pigs, sheep, goats, chickens, and humans. So here's what they did to that area and what it looks like now. Okay, so on this move, I'm gonna redeem myself. I'm actually doing this the right way. With the fence opening, everything's enclosed, unlike last time. So here we go. Sheep. 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 Okay guys, they're already going to work in here, finding their favorite stuff. So another thing I'm doing, if you can make out that blue right there, that's the blue of their water container. I'm putting that there. All the way at the other end is their mineral bucket. So I'm trying to spread those out now, just to try to equalize out the amount of trampling, manure, urine, and all that that's going on out here. The more even distribution of that, the better. Here's what it looked like after 5 days in here. And now their new paddock that I'm gonna set up right now will be over here. So when setting up these 164-foot nets, 2 of them together, what I've been doing is, I go to the end of the old net where they join together, start my nets there. So one of them goes this way, the other one's going the opposite way, and then they'll meet on the other side. But it's a very long net, so how do I know where will they meet on the other side? And that's sort of one of the tricky things about doing these nets is figuring that out. But the more you do it, the more you get a feel for and the area that you can cover with 1 or 2 nets. So what I like to do to help me with this is I just lay it out on the ground. So I've laid it out that all of this is going to be on the inside. Just judging by how far this went, that it's pretty obvious that other 164 is going to be able to come all the way around here. And then I've left about 3 lengths just laying here, because what I'm going to do next is go lay out that other 164 net to go around here and see kind of the approximate area that it ends up. So once I got over there, I knew, okay, I've got a lot of extra slack here. I'm gonna be able to do a wider net. So I came back to this nut and I went wider with it. And we're just gonna follow this natural pathway here and try to meet everything down there. So what I'll do is I'll just complete this net, put it in the ground. And now we know this is our finish point. So we need to work with that net to get here. So once everything has been laid on the ground, I then go and pound everything in, stretch it tight so that I know the exact length everything's going to be. So when doing all of your nets, whether it's pig, sheep, chicken, the best way to get it tight is to pull it tight at the top. Use your foot. Don't bend this too much. You still want to leave it straight or angled slightly towards your last post. And that'll make it so that the net stays super tight against here. To get this all to fit correctly, I don't have my final positions of those other pieces of the fence, but I can put in my final position where I want the fence to end and then work my way backwards, putting the stakes in, and then it will fit perfectly. Okay, and then once again, the final step is just to clean up the fence line, get any sticks or things that are on the white and black wires, and then we'll let in the sheep, move the water and the minerals, and it's all done. Okay guys, so this is sheep move number 4. They are now getting used to my sheep call and getting used to the idea of the feed bucket. So when I open this fence, I'm hoping that they're gonna follow me this time and it'll be very quick. So let's see what happens. Sheep. Sheep. So right now I think that they're scared because this is too high. I'm gonna knock down some of this so they feel more comfortable coming in here. Sheep. 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 All right, cool, so we got them all in there. That was super easy. So it just takes a few times, you know, just like with the pigs or any of these animals, if you're training them to the electric and their daily or their weekly or daily moves, just takes a little bit of time. So 4 moves and it's super easy now. So hope that gives you some confidence if you want to try this yourself. Last thing, I'm just making sure that this old net is not touching the new net so I don't electrify this net that's just laying on the ground out here. So since that final move, I've now moved them all the way around my property. They're now past my pigs, they passed them up. So the sheep, they have a much bigger area that they're in. They're moving about every 4 to 5 days. The pigs are only moving about every 10 days and they have a smaller area. So it's been interesting for my mind to try to conceptualize how much space each animal needs, how quickly they move, so that I can plan out grazing patterns or pig moves, things like that. So the more that you do this, the more you'll be able to like do things without a recipe, so to speak, and just do it by feel more.